This episode is brought to you by Flex Dealer.
I think it's just not having a short-term mindset and thinking long-term, that when I make it about them, I actually win when you think about the grand scheme of things.
Hey there, welcome back to this episode of the Dealer Playbook Podcast. So excited you could join me and my pal Hank Ebeling. He's a small business entrepreneur and author and passionate about something we all need to be passionate about, customer service. Stay tuned. All right, Hank, I was just in Baltimore at time of recording this. I put on an event there called ASOTUCon, which stands for Automotive State of the Union. Our closing keynote speaker was a gentleman by the name of Will Guidara. He's an author of Unreasonable Hospitality. And I find it no coincidence that you are here now to discuss what you've built a business around and a consultancy around, which is customer service. My first question, because this is an incredibly important topic of conversation, especially for car dealers and, as you mentioned pre-show, all business owners, providing an experience and a level of service that turns a transaction into a relationship, into raving fans and lifetime value increases and all those sorts of things. How did you get into this? What turned you on to customer service as the thing that you wanted to focus in on?
Yeah, for your audience listening, I actually come from the fitness industry. And before someone says, all right, why is this guy talking about fitness? We're in the automotive space. When it comes to customer service, customer experience, the principles are the same across all businesses. So I'm not going to make you talk, about your nutrition and what you're doing for your workouts. We're here to talk about the most important competitive advantage, which is customer service. So for me, it came from I actually went to school out in Las Vegas at UNLV, and one of my first jobs was in hospitality at the Venetian Hotel. So if your listeners are familiar with Las Vegas, the Venetian is one of the best hotels there, known for its high-end hospitality. And I worked actually in the spa there called Cannon Ranch Spa Fitness Center, extremely well-known spa fitness center. And that's where I had my initial boss, if you will, who came from a hospitality background, and she ingrained it into all of our brains. I always like to say she was the service Mary Poppins because she was English and she had this thick, heavy accent. And man, from day one, it was, your posture was what your body language says to the customer and the guest. So it was just that early period, getting it ingrained in my head and really seeing the difference, especially when you're talking about a higher end customer, the difference that makes and, what they're used to when they're spending a good amount of money. And we're talking about the auto industry. These are large, investments people are making. So it makes it even more important. So that was kind of the foot in the pool. And from there, I just started realizing, okay, this stuff's important and it can really create a distinction between yourself and someone else, your business and someone else. So that's kind of led me on that path since that initial day.
It brings to mind the fact that, yes, in fact, hospitality and caring for somebody else is a teachable skill. Where I think so often, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's society, maybe it's culture. We become tone deaf to other people's needs, maybe because we're so focused in on ourselves. Can you think of what maybe the first thing would be that you could teach someone who maybe seems a little bit tone deaf or blind to providing better customer service?
I think the simplest thing is just, it's not about you. And I think so often in business, especially leaders, owners, we take things personal, right? A lot of times it's
right.
Our dealership, it's our business, it's our team. And if a customer complains, if they come at you, you take it very personal and you almost get defensive, and that just blows things up right there. So I think if you take a different approach with the mindset of, I'm here to serve, if I can serve people, my business will grow, they'll be happy, I'll be happy, everyone's happy, versus always a kind of a defensive position, right? Like, well, I'm right, it's my business, it's my way, why are you telling me? It's going to really mess up your mindset from a service standpoint. So I think it starts and ends with the mindset first.
A good indication of that, I see it all the time, which is customer makes request, team laments the request. Ugh, they're so needy. How we're not making any money on these people. How do you mitigate that? How do you remove what I'm picking up on, the ego of it all, the inward? How do you start to remove that and say, okay, yeah, it's not about you though? How do you get somebody comfortable with the fact that it's not all about them in a world that's so me focused, you know?
Yeah, I think you do that by making it about them. And what I mean by that is, in the end, if you take care of the customer and you make it all about them, you selfishly win. If you're the owner of a dealership, of a business, that means more people are coming to your dealer, spending money, your retention, right? You win then in the long run. If you are an employee of a dealership, you're taking care of the customer, they're going to keep coming back, asking for you. You win again. So I think it's just not having a short-term mindset and thinking long-term, that when I make it about them, I actually win when you think about the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, I love it. So when you're working with small business owners and you're consulting them and you point this out, what is their generally speaking, what's kind of their first reaction to you saying, hey, there's an ego problem here and it's not all about you?
You know, most of the time people have a problem with that, right? Because we all have egos, and
Right.
you want to always feel like I need to win. I have to be the one right. And it's got to be my way. And I just think that's a tough thing for people to get out of their brains. But again, you have to wrap it about the big long-term picture of it. At the end of the day, you're not your customer. They're themselves. So unless you're selling and running a business just for you, it's just not going to work that way. So you just have to change that mindset. And when you make someone aware of that, they quickly understand, hey, I would like to have a more successful business, better run operation. So that kind of helps, when you kind of form it that way in their brains.
Yeah, I love it. Recently on your Instagram at Hank Ebeling, you posted a quote, and I love it. I want to get deeper thoughts about this. You said, customer service is the best marketing you can ever have. It's the greatest competitive advantage for a business. And I love that because especially in the retail auto industry, as I'm sure other industries, there's no shortage of data, right? And what we find is operators so neck deep in data looking for what could we change and what could we improve and how do we decrease our marketing spend and how do we improve conversions and all of the sorts of things that we care about as a business. And here you are coming right up the middle saying, yeah, it's customer service. So talk to me a little bit more about that and the kind of the far reaching long-term impact, as you've suggested, of customer service actually being at the center of a marketing strategy.
Yeah, I think so many business owners tend to look at customer service as something that just happens, right? It's just part of the business, but they don't think of it as a competitive advantage. They don't think of it as a revenue generator. And most businesses, it's a revenue detractor because they don't have great service. And that's the key distinction for the listeners, not good. If you and I go into a room right now of 100 owners, dealer owners, and we say, how many of you think you have good customer service? Everyone's going to raise their hand, right? No one's going to say we don't. But the key thing there is they say we have good, and good customer service doesn't get talked about. It's not a competitive advantage. That you need to be above good to truly get talked about, to create essentially like walking billboards of your business. So we're back to the whole mindset thing, but it's a mindset shift of, you want to grow the business. Don't think I have to run ads and I have to spend. Look to invest. And when I say invest, I don't mean money, within your team, hiring the right people, coaching them and onboarding them properly. So that service does become a true competitive advantage, which it can be as long as it's not just something that's passive and you think you do in a good manner, but not a great manner. Then it really becomes that competitive advantage.
What I love about this is, especially this day and age, at the precipice of AI, and oh my gosh, AI is going to take everybody's jobs, or no, it's only going to replace jobs that didn't require a soul, or it's going to do all these things for us. It's going to be able to automate this, that, and the next thing. And so many people are digging in right now, seeking to understand the future of the competitive landscape and technology's ability to augment that. But what I love about what you're saying, Hank, is okay, but despite all of this and despite all the advancements in technology, human beings are the ones that are going to be transacting. And if that's going to be the case today and in the past and in the future, then we will still want, fundamentally as human beings, we will still want the same things in the future that we want today, which is to be heard and felt and understood and served and touched and, you know, all these sorts of things, which comes back to your original point of, yeah, provide them better service. They're going to want better despite AI, right? I think is where I'm going. The punchline is, despite all these technological advances, there's people will still fundamentally want to feel connected to other human beings.
Yeah, it's 100% relationships, and you're spot on. We're still humans, and we still want that interaction. And the good news of it, the automotive industry, much like my industry, fitness, the bar has been set very low. Most people in the automotive industry, much like my industry, simply suck at it, right? They don't deliver great service, or maybe they do here and there. So the good news for you is it's not that difficult to create that distinction, but it's not easy to do it. You just have to do it.
Hey, does your marketing agency suck? Listen, before we hop back into this episode, I know you know me as the host of the Dealer Playbook, but did you also know that I'm the CEO of Flex Dealer, an agency that's helping dealers capture better quality leads from local SEO and hyper-targeted ads that convert? So if you want to sell more cars and finally have a partner that's in it with you that doesn't suck, visit flexdealer.com. Let's hop back into this episode. Talk to me about the fitness industry. I want to kind of see if I can't contrast it against some of the things that we commonly talk about in retail automotive, of which, you know, you'll know some of them from the customer experience. But I find fitness fascinating because you either know you need to get in shape, you're compelled to get in shape because you've got some health issue, or you need to be convinced somehow to get in shape. And so right out of the gates, I see the level of skepticism from a customer perspective almost on par with a car customer who's feeling skeptical about going and buying a car. What are some challenges from a customer service perspective you identify that need to be solved in the fitness industry?
You know, I'd actually like to tie the two, because what you just said is true for both of these industries, which is it's a feeling of somebody coming in to a dealership, to a gym, uncomfortable, very uncomfortable and unsure. In my realm, it's, am I overweight? Is everyone going to be in shape? Can I do this? Right. I have a knee injury. I don't even know what a gym looks like. I've never been into one. I'm going into a dealership. Is this person going to try to sell me what I don't really want? I've never made a purchase like this before in my life. Is my spouse going to be upset with? It's a very similar uncomfortableness and maybe, nervousness. So I think the way that you handle something like that is you simply, just be genuine, and you don't come out of the gate strong. Like for us, it's not, well, this is why you should be here. And well, yeah, you should have done this. And why haven't you done this before? And, right. And come on in a strong, almost attack, right? Very aggressive. Well, same with the car industry. You just have to start off easy, build the relationship, and almost just not even make anything about, what they came in for. But let's just, hey, we're two humans talking. Let's start the relationship, and we'll eventually get into that. So in my experience, I think that's the best way to go about it.
It's funny too, because as you were saying this, I'm thinking that, there's obviously kind of two opposing opinions about how this should be done. There are the, dare I say, assassin salespeople who are like, no, they're here for a purpose. They came to my car dealership for a reason, or they came into the gym for a reason. I'm going to say, what brings you in here today? And I'm going to get the handshake, and I'm going to pull them in, and I'm going to. Then there's the flip side, which I tend to resonate more with, which is what you're talking about. No, I'd rather lay the foundation of a long-term relationship of trust, similar to the visual that comes to my mind, Hank, of walking into a bar for the first time, seeing a beautiful person sitting at the bar, and without knowing them, walking directly up to them and asking them to marry you. They'd be like, what? Who's this guy? And we do that so often in sales. And the only tie back I have is to something you said earlier, which is it's not about you. And perhaps the biggest mistake we're making when it comes to serving others is that maybe, just maybe, and we need to get honest with ourselves here, we're only feeling like we should be serving others to serve our best interests. And so you used a word I love. It was genuine. How do I mean, I say rhetorically speaking, but how do I know if I'm genuine? Like, how do I know if it sounds like maybe a dumb question, but it's like for those listening who are like, am I being genuine? Do I know? Like, how do you recommend to somebody a reference point for being genuine and authentic?
I think it just be yourself, number one, and don't be scripted. I see a lot of businesses sometimes when I work with, and you see this a lot in the automotive industry, they're very scripted, right? I need to say this. When someone comes in, I have to, if they said blank, then I'm going to respond this way. And if they then 3 steps later said this, I'm going to have to reply this way. And then you become very not authentic, right? And you sound scripted and robotic. So I think the simplest thing is don't be scripted and just be yourself. And if that's a little goofy, if that's kind of serious, just be you, because when you're not you, I think people pick up on that, and that makes them uneasy, almost like, hey, are they trying to put on, a facade for me? Are they reading off a script? Are they just simply trained to this robotic response? Right. And that's kind of what I would say is be you and go unscripted.
How do you encourage leaders to let their people be themselves? Do you know what I mean? Because I feel like sometimes corporate environment is very stuffy. It's very claustrophobic. And it's like, no, you look this way, you groom this way, you dress this way, et cetera. Like, is there still room for there to be a line there and allow people to be themselves?
Yeah, I think it starts with your culture. I mean, if you have a really great culture that's centered around service, you've hired the right people that fit that culture. Yeah, you don't want to just put them in this, box. You want them to have some freedom, but it's still centered around the customer 100%. Hey, be you, do what you need to do, but make it about the customer and make them, be the star of the show. So that's okay if there's a little bit of movement, if you will, in terms of off the straight line path of, what you want. So it's not so rigid. And if you hire the right people, that's going to happen, right? Because you have someone, you don't have to just sit there and be the puppet behind the scenes. I got to make sure every little move that they're doing this. You probably don't have the right person.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I love that you bring up culture. I'm big on this conversation around culture. I'm thinking about, just as we're starting to wind down here, this all resonates deeply with me, and I'm trying to examine why. And I think it's partly is because I just feel like I'm wired this way. I'm wired to be okay to play the long game or the infinite game when it comes to this stuff. But I also recognize, because I feel like that's the way I'm wired, that it's easier for me to accept that. And contrasting it against an immediate gratification world where, like, we get it. People have bills to pay. They got to keep the wolf off the doorstep, which is inherently a me thought process, inward focused. What do you say to encourage people that are trying to balance the need for the immediate with this idea of playing the long game and build that relationship with somebody and lean into the infinite game?
Yeah, I think where you just have to look at it is, if you just think short sighted about, the right now, well, and you don't focus on the long term, which is building those relationships, it can really backfire both ends because I piss you off as a customer right now. I'm so focused on sales right now for the month. We got 2 days left, whatever, who cares, this and that. And now I just pissed someone off. That person maybe was going to purchase from me a car and tell 2 other friends to purchase car, and they're going to come back in 5 years, purchase another car. Now I just lost 5 sales from that person because I was such a rush about right now and getting something done now. I lost that sale. Maybe they go on social media and just blast your dealership, and now you just lost 1,000 potential sales. So I think sometimes if you rush and just focus about the now, something can happen in the now that can ruin both now and in the future. So I think that's a good way to think about it.
Yeah, you're right. And probably if everyone paused for 37 seconds and looked back, they would start to identify examples of how they did exactly what you just explained. They just burned it. And now they're sitting here wondering why that customer doesn't call them back, hasn't come back to buy a second or a third vehicle or get their vehicle serviced. I mean, here's an example of this, Hank, that I think a lot of people listening would identify with, which is becoming lead zombies. They all want more. We need more leads. We need more leads because we're in a 30-day cycle. At the turn of the month, it's a clean slate again. We got to get those sales. So it's leads, leads, leads. And more recently, I've really keyed in on this concept of what you're talking about, which is how many leads can I actually handle properly for my business? Because if I can't handle 500 a month properly, or 1,000 a month, because that seems to be a magic number for a lot of people. If I'm honest with myself and I can only handle 100 or 130 properly, why am I okay burning to the ground a possible relationship with 970 people, or 870 people? Like, it's, you know what I mean? Like, we're just in this state of mind where we're just, and so that's what comes to my mind. Now I've enraged my entire audience. I'm going to get canceled. I want to just quickly, as we wind down now, I want to talk to you a little bit about your book. What led to you writing Crushing the Competition with Service? What was the inspiration for it?
Really just, we have a lot of small business owner clients in all industries, you name it, we have it. And a lot of them would see what we're doing with our team, and no matter who came and went, the culture never changed. The service never changed, whether I was there at either of our locations or not. And so some of them started asking questions, started slowly helping some of them with their businesses, and then eventually just thought, well, why not put this on paper, make an easy read, make it kind of fun. It's got a comic book theme to it, pop art theme, easy to digest, because those of you listening, if you're a leader and owner, you do not have much time to sit down and read a 300-page book. You need quick, simple, to the point. Let me just take something and run with it. And that's kind of the philosophy on the book.
Awesome. I love it. Two last questions. This has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but I've just got to know. We got to put this to bed once and for all. A year ago, I started getting into my health and fitness because I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. The carnivore diet. Yes or no? Like, is it good? Is it not good? And I'm asking this question specifically for our Chief Revenue Officer, Emerson Abria, who right now is on a carnivore diet kick. And I'm like, no, man, you need carbs before a lift. You need, and I see those raging biceps just peeking above the fold there. And I'm like, okay, he knows what we're supposed to be doing.
Well, here's my response. This is what we tell all of our clients, which is, 1, there is no perfect anything. 2, base what you need off of you, not the person next to you, your neighbor, your spouse, your friend. And 3, really the best eating philosophy is simply, something that has a little bit of everything. A lot of times people go extremes. I'm just eating meat, paleo. I'm doing Mediterranean. I'm only eating plant-based. Now, while all those probably do work and seen them work, in the long game, you're probably missing out on a lot of stuff. So yes, protein is probably the most important thing. don't be scared of meat. But I think a well-rounded approach, which is what we teach our clients, is the best long-term strategy, one that you'll probably actually stick to for more than a year or two. So that's how I would reply to that individual.
You heard it here first, Emer. Protein, yes, but well-rounded. This is my little nudge. I laugh at him about this because he is gung-ho and he's a retired Marine combat veteran. So when he's like, I am locked in, let's go. One final question. How can those listening and watching get in touch with you and connect with you?
Yeah, I'm sure you guys will have show notes. You can follow links that way. But if not, Hank Ebeling on Instagram, LinkedIn, those are probably my two main sources. Shoot me a message. Love to chat, learn about what you're doing. If there's any way it could bring value, talking about, I always say, my business superpower, which is customer service. So thanks for having me on. And hopefully somebody will take a little gem here and kind of be different, create that distinction with service from your competitors.
I love it. Hank Ebeling, thanks so much for joining me on the Dealer Playbook Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for listening to the Dealer Playbook Podcast. If you enjoyed tuning in, please subscribe, share, and hit that like button. You can also join us and the DPB community on social media. Check back next week for a new Dealer Playbook episode. Thanks so much for joining.